Alright, guys, we are back for another movie review, and today we are reviewing Wolfman, the brand new 2025 movie. And this is something to really, I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. If you guys seen this, cool. If you haven't, let me know what you guys thought about it. But overall, this was a interesting movie to say the least. It wasn't. I'm just gonna go ahead and say this now. I went into this with, I would say, certain expectations, and I was let down. I was let down. So the entirety of this story is based around the character Blake and his wife and his daughter, who they have to go to Oregon. He finds out his father passed away, and he had a hard life growing up. It seemed like his father raised him on his own, and his father was very strict, very demanding. Looked like, of course, he was a military man, and he took Blake out hunting one day when he was young. They came across something very unknowing to the land that they were in, and it almost attacked them. And when his dad told his buddy about it, it seemed like he was going to be obsessed with hunting this thing. So, as far as we knew as the audience, that his father went missing. And what happens is Blake and his wife are having issues. Him and Charlotte, who is played by Julia Garner, and then also Christopher Abbott is who's playing Blake. Now, again, I was very like, okay, I don't really recognize a lot of these actors. I'm not very familiar with them. So going into this movie, I was like, okay, let's just try to give it a shot here. So Blake, through the entire movie, he's dealing with his father's death. Him and Charlotte having problems. He's being a homestead dad, and they go to try to get his dad's stuff. Well, unfortunately, they take a wrong turn, and he runs into a child acquaintance of his that there ain't many people left up on this mountain. So he's like, hey, let me show some, hospitality to show you exactly where you need to go for your dad's home. Well, unfortunately, on the way there, they run into someone in the middle of the road, and then they get attacked when they're trying to exit out of the, I would say, the truck. Now, what's crazy is they finally escape. They get in the house. They're pretty much trying to board up and wait for the entirety of this thing to show up, and don't know exactly what it is just yet. And us as the audience, we know what it is. It's the so-called Wolfman. And during the entirety of this whole movie, all it was seeing Blake go through the transition. And the main thing that really captured my attention was, okay, how is he going through this when it didn't look like he got bit or scratched? Because the only way he could have was when he was trying to close the passenger door. If you guys seen the movie, he closes the passenger door, and the passenger door window is busted into, and his arm gets cut or whatever. I didn't see him get bit or scratched, so I'm like, how did he contract this, disease? I guess you'd say. And what we see is two different ways from him seeing his hearing is evolved. He's not understanding the language of English language. His wife and daughter thinks he's dying, and by the very end of it, he starts turning, and he's still able to hold off. But then this thing is stalking him throughout the entirety of the movie, and then finally, when this thing does get in, when Blake is almost 3/4 within his transition, they start fighting, and it's pretty much monster versus monster, and Blake's able to take out this monster. But what we see is, unfortunately, this monster was his father. So his father was got bitten or got scratched or whatever, and became this unknown monster. And he, even though he was a monster himself, he was able to know that he killed his father. And his daughter and him had a very special connection. She would place her fingers on his head, like, "What am I thinking?" And her dad would always say, "You know what? He's, whatever." And unfortunately, the disease took over him. He starts trying to attack his family, and they're able to fight him off. But without further ado, he still holds off just enough for them to kind of pull the trigger on him to be able to give him peace. And that's how the movie ends. So, again, this movie was not the best in my opinion. The only good thing about this movie was the landscape in this film. Where they shot it at was very beautiful. The way it looked was beautiful. but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get into the big negatives. Honestly, the transformation of, I guess, the werewolf and having it make sense of how you get bitten or how you get infected didn't make sense. It was very lame. It was really, it just didn't look right as a so-called werewolf. The actual look of the werewolf did not look good either. It looked very bad. It looked like it was very old school. This did not look like a Blumhouse film. I mean, again, Blumhouse kind of goes up and down to either being a good film or a bad film, depending on what it is. But most of the time, Blumhouse is either hit or miss. This was a massive miss. It was absolutely horrible. The characters, didn't really feel anything for the characters. I don't think the acting was very well done either. The writing was very lacking as well. The one Charlotte, she did not feel like a mother. She felt more like an older sister than a wife at all. So that was another reason why I couldn't take her seriously. She was not acting like a mother. She was more acting like an older sister. And the one Blake, I just, it still didn't make no sense to me of how he got infected, or how he was able to hold on still, or how he was strong enough to be able to fight the other one that seemed to be stronger than him. So there's just a lot of critique in this film, but I don't see how this film it did good at all, because it just, if I could rate this movie, I'd give it a 2 or 1.5. That's how badly this movie is. I don't know exactly what's going on in horror anymore. I don't know if it's because of lack of vision. I don't know if it's because of, uh, I don't know, imaginary purposes, writing purposes, acting purposes. I don't know. This movie was just, it was a flop. It was a flop in my opinion. This is not, to me, a werewolf movie. This is something else that was fan made, that was, could be a werewolf movie. So, again, that's just my opinion, guys. What do you think about this film? Is it a bad film, good film? Is it a decent film? Is it something one and done? What do you think about it? Always let me know about it down in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you as always on the next one.